They have a distinct style of play, very similar to almost the buzz ball. It's a lot of fast cuts, fast players. They're used to playing on the beach, and we'll have to see how they throw in the wind today.
Megan, this Philippines squad became the Boracay Dragons in 2003, and they have become the monsters of the beach. Aside from Team USA, the Philippines typically considered one of the favorites, and how have they done it?
It's a very interesting story how the Boracay Dragons have become the powerhouse of Southeast Asia, and it's difficult to describe exactly what this team means to the individuals who comprise it. But in short, they've tried to develop a system that you buy into. It's not just practice, it's not just a set of plays, but really a lifestyle that involves strength and conditioning, nutrition, adequate rest. So all of these players are buying into this system, learning how to be true athletes of the sport.
Team USA led by captains Brett Matsuka and Mark Poole. The Philippines led by their captain Jude Lee and a couple of coaches, Wendell Simbulan and Akira Yamaguchi. USA has not had to deal with a win like this yet.
Oh, no team has really had to deal with a win like that other than the mixed division that just occurred. Everybody's going to be constantly adjusting in this game. We'll see. We saw a two-person cup towards the end of it for Team USA in the mixed division. We'll see if the open team employs that strategy or if they rely on what they consider to be their advantage in man-to-man defense.
The deficit both USA and Canada had in that last game was during their warm-ups. The wind was not nearly as ferocious. It occurred during their first few points of the game. It started to pick up. Both USA and Philippines understand very well the conditions they're facing. I'm sure they've talked quite a lot about how they're going to combat it.
Mario O'Brien picks up the disc. Jared Inselman throws underneath for Jack Marsh. Alan Kolick and Asa Wilson, the other members of this offensive line for the United States. And Kolick, his first put is right on the money. Asa Wilson for the United States. Everybody touched it. And an early statement from USA.
Already you see the throwing prowess of the Americans able to fit it through. And Kolick, I think a reader of the wind and knowing what it's going to do downfield, put it out to space and let the air do the rest.
And contrasting that with the offense we saw in the last game, how many throws it took to get to the end zone. The longer the disc is in the air, the more time the wind has to impact it. So they kept their throws a little bit shorter so that the spin could control the movement of that disc.
Brett Matsuka getting ready to pull out there with Goose Helton, Teddy Brower-Jarris, Jack Hatchett, and Jack McShane. The depth of this United States team is impressive. They really don't have a weak link on the roster. And that might have been touched, so the Philippines have to begin play. This is David Lubaon looking short. Look at the front end zone line, guys. That is not a straight line. Basically a rainbow for the front of the end zone. They may have just broke the Porto field. I think they did.
Yeah, they did. They're going to have to use the orange pylons as the definitive marker.
Oh, they put the stake back in. That front line of the Porto field stake down. A little field maintenance on the fly as USA looks for the 2-0 lead. Matsuka breaks his mark, but the Philippines lay out. That's Pinoy de los Santos. And one thing about the Dragons, they love to lay out. Question is, Megan, do you think the Philippines have the throws to combat this win? That's the big question, because we already saw Team USA has the chops.
So in comparing the programs that's currently in place in the Philippines and in the United States, of course, the United States, a much longer, richer ultimate history. That lends itself to so much more discussion about throwing in wind, really teaching individuals how to make their mark when the wind is this high. I'm not so sure that the Philippines do have the throws to combat this, but I do think they have a rising level of ultimate intelligence to say we don't necessarily have have the throws to put it long. Let's talk about the adjustments we can make so that we can do our best in this wind.
A drop there from Emmanuel Rodil, and USA will get the disc back.
One thing you're going to see the advantage that the Philippines have is just the advantage of running on wind or sand and playing in beach in general.
Uncharacteristic turnover near their own goal line. Antonio Francisco picks it up and hits his man in the end zone. The Boracay Dragons with Emmanuel Rodil tie it at 1.
You can see the throwing skill by both teams, and Megan, you mentioned we're not sure yet. The Philippines have to constantly prove it, but they do have enough to get it by where we're seeing short throws and not the same deep Hail Mary game that we saw in the previous round in the mixed division.
USA with the offensive line back out there. Tyler DiGirolamo on the field for the first time in the game with Kolick, O'Brien, Inselman, and Wilson. One of the things we asked some of the Team USA members, just chatting on the field last couple of days, who's the fastest guy in the team? And I was a little surprised when there seemed to be a quorum for Asa Wilson. Looking for DiGirolamo, who's got some speed and height, but not enough in this case.
DiGirolamo was wide open in the end zone. He just has to wait for the throw to actually come in. Unfortunately, it was more oriented toward the Red Bull truck in the background.
We saw USA beat Canada a couple days ago in pool play. USA went through pool play undefeated. The Philippines losing to only the Brits.
Kolick knew where the thrower was going with the disc before the receiver did. Great job defending in deep space.
Kolick picks up, short for O'Brien. Now that's the type of throw that if the USA can convert it consistently, just that short 5-yard dump, they've got a great advantage. Because in the mixed game, we didn't even see them. They basically threw that weapon out of the quiver.
And it's understandable why you would want to. Of course, if you can't make that short dumb pass, you give the opposing team the disc right on their end zone. But it does enable you to move the disc side to side across the field, getting it in a more advantageous place.
Wilson with his great speed on the sand breaking away.
O'Brien is known to be a conservative handler.
Tremendous layout D there.
And I think he's going to need to make an adjustment.
Oh, what a grab on the upside down throw. That was unbelievable. Jude Lee. Was this up? I didn't think he had a chance, but he got it unquestionably. And Alan Kolick with his thumbs up said, great play.
I don't know, watching that again, I can understand why there is some discussion on that one. It looks like that front end might have hit first.
Really? We disagree then.
I think
which is fine.
I think we're looking at
break the tie, Brian.
We're looking at an NFL situation. I don't know what the rule is on the bobble and a continuous control in this game, because I don't think the receiver had continuous possession all the way through. I think got a hand on it before it did hit the ground, but you can see it start to change grips as he's going through.
It's a gutsy throw from Kevin Pascua to go with a hammer. So tough to control in this wind. We slow it down as much as we can. See, I think he stops rotation on that initial possession.
I changed my ruling. Impressive play from the 43-year-old Jude Lee.
They do send it back though. They contested it underneath to Jobert Buenaventura. Pascua in and out of the hands of his target in the end zone.
trying to say earlier, I think Mario O'Brien is known for being a conservative handler. He's going to need to adjust his game a little bit to take more of those deep shots when there's nothing available in stall 8, stall 9.
Well, and that's really been the style of this team the entire tournament. You know, take the sure thing. Nobody needs to be the hero. Upside down throw, length of the field, just out of the reach of Wilson.
Speaking of heroics, what a throw.
If you didn't know who Alan Kolick was, you better figure it out, because that's an incredible monster throw.
Just a tough adjustment from Asa Wilson leaves him only a split second to make that grab.
It's A.J. Jakoski launching that one deep, defended by Kolick. Guys, Jakoski, an interesting story. Obviously from the U.S., played at Salisbury, a good friend of Tim Morrill, part of the group with Elliott Trotter that went over to the Philippines. He's trained with them, he's practiced with them, he's helped to teach them. At the Boracay Open, the legendary beach tournament, he has assimilated with the culture. And Jakoski, as I joked with him before, a traitor to Team USA, but certainly a guy that the Dragons have learned to count on and an X factor in this game.
And someone who actively sought out becoming a teammate of a Boracay Dragon. This was not something that just chanced on his plate when he was in Singapore helping the run Moral Fitness Performance. He headed over to Philippines for this opportunity.
In and out of the hands of Buenaventura. And Jakoski and Tim Morrill. Morrill, of course, of his Moral Performance, is the strength and conditioning coach for every Dragons team here. And they're planning up after this tournament of going to Ocean City on the eastern shore of Maryland and starting to train for USAU Beach Nationals, the first premier beach nationals in the U.S. Putting a team together that'll involve both AJ and Tim. Goose Helton will play on that team as well. Something to watch as we move toward the beach ultimate season in the U.S. So Jakoski picks up and turfs it immediately. Oh, wow. So Team USA, golden opportunity here. Try to take advantage of this short field.
I think this is where you like O'Brien to have the disc. He's very wily, has a lot of lefty backhand short throws that are going to prove devastating.
And a foul called, perhaps on the mark. And there's so many days when you could just, you know, flip it to space here. But this is not one of those days. Because if you do that, the disc could go in all sorts of directions.
Yeah, whatever throw you put has to have a lot of spin to ensure that path to your receiver.
O'Brien with Kolick closest to him. And incomplete. Could not connect with Wilson. Dragons with a dangerous dump. Good layout on the mark by Kinley. The Jakoski underneath. Nobody really looking deep here for the Dragons. They're just working it down the field, unbeknownst to the wind. The Dragons looking for a 2-1 lead. The Philippines making a statement here in Dubai. From the mixed semifinal to the open semifinal, we have not seen flow like this, working it down the field through this harsh breeze.
And this is very intelligent move on the part of Team Philippines. The reason is all of these players are in fantastic shape. They are fast enough to move the disc down the field this quickly, and when you keep those throws shorter, they're much more likely to make it to their intended target.
Make a great point, Megan. As the point has gone on, the Philippines' advantage grows larger and larger in the shape and the way they know how to run in the beach. Team USA, very fit players, very athletic, but it seemed like they slowed down just a little bit towards the end of that after a long possession.
Megan, I know you spent a lot of time talking with the members of the Dragons. Do you get a sense of what their secret is to being so good on the beach and how they have trained to gain this endurance?
So as I mentioned earlier, the Boracay Dragons is a family, is a way of life, and buying into that really helps them believe in the training that they are doing. Players like Rodil, number 20 on the field right now, he doesn't live in Boracay, but he moved to Boracay for 6 weeks leading up to this tournament to continue his training.
By Inselman, excuse me, Megan.
No, it's quite all right. So I think that level of buy-in helps them understand how important it is to follow the instructions of the coach and Tim Morrill, who led them in their strength and conditioning program that helps them be this good on the beach.
And Kinley hits DiGirolamo. 2-2.
Just like we saw the Philippines working up the field, we see Team USA take advantage of their throwing ability and also their speed and athleticism. No problem working it down the field in this case.
How about that flexibility on that throw from Kinley? Lying on the beach. And it did take that one nice catch from Inselman on the 50-50 disc that Kinley put up there from the other end zone. So 2-2. Now the score. About 14 minutes have elapsed in this Beach Open semifinal. Winner of this game will take on the winner between Great Britain and Canada. Great Britain, like the USA, going through pool play, undefeated. Justin Ford leading that GB squad that beat the Philippines in a tight game. Great Britain winning by 3 or so. Matsuka to pull with Brower Jarris by his side. Out there with Hatchett. Also David Cranston and Mark Poole. More small ball. And Brower Jarris lays out. Great defense by Teddy.
Something we got to talk about was Brett Matsuka earlier in this tournament. And this creative thrower has the ability to open up a lot of avenues, and we see on both sides of the disc for Team USA, you have Matsuka on one end, who can get it done with a complementary array of other throwers who are very skilled, and Kolek throwing some fantastic puts earlier in this game.
Yeah, Evan, I like what you said earlier about Team USA not having any weak links, and to build on that, each player brings something very unique to the table, and Matsuka, of course, with his wily, wide range of throws that are still effective in this wind.
Interesting, though, after Matsuka turns it over, he immediately goes to guard one of the handlers and leave the taller guys to play the defense, like Hatchett, Brower Jarris. No mark here for USA. Interesting. Now Cranston runs over. Philippines sacrificing some yards, but able to swing the disc.
Sometimes when you play this type of zone and allow them to go ahead and get space in the cup, you can allow them to make safer throws. You're hoping to play the percentages in this case, that they won't be able to actually complete these passes.
Ryan, are you impressed by the Philippines small ball throws right here?
Absolutely. They're doing a great job of moving the disc and showing a confidence.
Oh, he got it. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Antonio Francisco might be the quickest member of the Philippines team. Could not haul that in off the juggle.
Again, this USA defensive strategy is about playing the percentages.
Airing one out, seeking Matsuka. Matsuka, one of the leaders of this team on the sidelines, always bringing positive energy. You know, it's interesting, guys, because there is no coach. Sure, there are the couple captains, but you know, these are great players who all are used to being the best one or two guys on their team, and not even from sublimating their own personal performance on the field, but letting others be the main voices on strategy and being willing to, you know, take instructions from your teammates. I think that's the diminishing of roles that takes more getting used to, even than a lesser role on the field. Hatchett had that disc bounce over him.
And I think their ability to coalesce on this defense is really exemplary of how just the team chemistry happens to be great on Team USA. One of the storylines we've talked about all throughout the tournament is how long it takes in a week-long tournament like this with individuals you haven't played with before to develop that kind of cohesiveness. Well, here we are towards the end of the tournament. We see Team USA playing somewhat of a creative zone defense that bounces back and forth between man, and it's working really well for them, even though it's not textbook.
Here's a deep shot coming back in play. What a grab. Antonio Francisco on a full field shot.
Francisco is one of the players on the Boracay Dragon they consider a newer generation, meaning he's joined the Boracay Dragon program within the last couple of years. And it's individuals like this who really bring out a very hopeful future for the Boracay Dragons, for Ultimate in the Philippines. A newer guy to Ultimate, to this system, and yet still making incredible plays like that one.
Get a brief sense of our vantage point up in the bleachers. And guys, as we get toward the more spectator games, the finals all tomorrow, 2 more this afternoon, we're going to be in the pack of fans. It's going to be a lot of fun to absorb all the cultures cheering and enjoying their final days here on the beach in Dubai before going to go home to the cold that many of these countries have come from. Kola could not haul that in. So the Dragons, certainly they consider themselves owners of the beach. Incomplete on that shot to the end zone, defended well. Jack Marsh, one of the captains of Pony, comes up with a D. And USA looking a little flummoxed here, perhaps the most flummoxed we've seen them look all week long.
They made a critical mistake last time on defense. Call on the field.
What was that critical mistake?
In the last possession, we had Cranston on the mark, and he had help on the forehand side with Matsuka there playing in that zone. Cranston needs to know where that help is so he doesn't let the backhand up, and the backhand is the easier throw to put in this wind, a lot more spin on it.
O'Brien picks up the disc. Stalwart on Seattle's sockeye. Over to Marsh, looking to the end zone, and it's Wilson. Second score for Asa Wilson, and the USA has knotted the score again.
Fantastic execution on that backhand put by Marsh. Notice how the wind started to take it, but had he lifted that lip any more, the wind really would have pushed it completely out of play.
You know, we've seen through the week, the only team that can beat Team USA, in normal conditions at least, is Team USA. Their offense, clicking on all cylinders, is basically unstoppable, in part because teams, you know, have given them the dump. USA has been able to get the reset every single time, and I was thinking coming into the day, basing this thought on more normal conditions, of course, if a team was going to challenge USA, they were going to do everything they could to take away that dump and sort of force that deep shot, which may sound crazy with the skill that USA has, but USA has just shredded teams with a small ball game. Tic-tac-toeing their way down the field.
Team USA really needs to be careful here on defense. They can't let up too many easy possessions here for the Philippines. They've gotten some nice throws off, some deep opportunities as well.
That just never more than a few inches from the field. The Philippines again, slowly to the end zone, and it's Rodil, 4-3, the Dragons of the Philippines.
And this is why I don't really like zone defense in this high amount of wind. You're giving the Philippines a chance to throw wide open throws. In this beach ultimate, we have 5-on-5. You can't put together a 4-person cup and really force them into really dire situations. You can only put, at most, it looks like 3 people around the disc. There's going to be some holes. The Philippines are used to hitting in these small windows. I think USA has to change to more of a style of man-to-man.
Have you noticed any consensus on what the best zone defense is in a 5-on-5 game?
Not whatsoever. I think, especially in this wind, Evan, you have teams just trying things out because you have to figure out how to play. There's not enough experience, even in these players who've been playing for 15, 20 years, to understand what the exact right thing to do is.
O'Brien, Kinley, Marsh, Inselman, and DiGirolamo, the line for USA. Kinley directing traffic, and that disc is defended beautifully. Kevin Pascua comes up with a D. The Philippines to the end zone once more. A 5-3 lead over the United States. We've seen U.S. fall behind occasionally early in games. In their pre-quarter game yesterday against an Irish team that hadn't won, Ireland led 3-1. But these are not the most comfortable conditions to be trailing by 2 in, because it's not like you can just work it down the field easily. There's chance involved with every throw.
I think there's enough time actually left in this game. If the U.S. is able to change their strategy, we've seen a lot more frequency of scoring in this one than we saw in the mixed final. We've already reached 5 points from the Philippines, and so the U.S. has to get on the right strategy on the offensive side of the disc and the defensive side of the disc. From there, they still have an opportunity to come back in this game.
Just a little give and go here near the end zone, and on this majestically gorgeous day, except for the wind, it's as clear as it has been. There was a sandstorm here in the Emirate last week, which left everything very hazy. We thought it was smoggy, but it actually was just dusty these past few days. By far the best visibility from our vantage point into the distance in all directions today, despite this hefty wind. And basically just a punt from the United States.
It can be really tempting for these elite players who have some of the best throws in the world, are the best throwers in the world in a lot of cases, to want to work it up the field. But it's okay to take those shots in this wind and play the field position game. You have elite defenders as well.
Really tough spot to have the disc. And Wilson almost defended it. Got a piece of the disc on the deflection. Francisco had a glorious opportunity. It is amazing how much it feels like a game of chance right now, Brian.
It somewhat is in a lot of ways. That's what you can be. It can be dangerous. You have to get both hands on the disc. You have to catch it and make sure you knock it down in front of you.
Marsh lets it fly, seeking Kinley. Incomplete. Well, the tournament, WCBU 2015, does have an official meteorologist, and when we had this high level of wind yesterday, we were told via proxy that the official meteorologist, Wendy Crouch, had said the highest winds were over for the week. And, you know, like most weathermen and weatherwomen, they keep their job even when they're incorrect. Best job in the world if you can get it.
I do think this wind is worse than yesterday. Maybe that's because the problem that is the biggest is the one staring you in the face. But I think this is a little swirlier, a little gustier, and definitely stronger than yesterday.
O'Brien breaks the mark for Kolek. Kolek to the brink of the end zone. This is Marsh. Kolek! USA within 1.
Such much temperance from Jack Marsh on that one. It looked like he had to holster a couple of bad decisions into a potential Boracay Dragon defender. Kolek came from behind for the save. The stall count had to have been getting high on that one.
Again, the soft cap goes on at 45 minutes. These games are really quick. We will have basically an hour break on the broadcast, and then we'll have both the mixed masters and the women's masters championship games. Those are both USA versus Canada. Matsuka to pull. It was interesting during the previous game, the quarterfinal that Team USA had. They were on the sidelines, Brett Matsuka, Goose Helton, Tyler DiGirolamo, and talking about different strategies. And I heard Brett Matsuka refer to, well, the probability of this is better than the probability of that. And I would trust him when it comes to probabilities, since he's a mathematician.
Yeah, if he knows his...
And he comes up with a D there, cutting off the angle. To Brower Jarris. Back to Matsuka. DiGirolamo, little 1-2 game, and maybe a traveling violation called. DiGirolamo has played all week long with that red scarf. Brower Jarris back to Matsuka. USA looking for its second straight score. Helton could not come up with that short toss from Matsuka. So now the question becomes, can the Philippines connect on a deep shot? Looking for Rodil. Incomplete.
I like the intensity that the U.S. defense came out with on this possession. They were able to go ahead and tighten up as the Philippines started to work it down the field with the short passes, and gradually just gave them nowhere to go. And that's the advantage they're going to have. They're going to be a little bit taller. They're going to have to play tighter and not let them play the game they want to.
Oh, goodness. Helton thought that was going to get D'd, but stayed ready. Brower Jarris looking on the brink of the end zone, and a foul called. Well, you never give up on a disc. Goose Helton right there.
Cat-like reflexes after it came over the head.
DiGirolamo, is he in? Yes, he is, and we're tied 5-5. A bit of a straddle, but that foot came down in the end zone just a split second before the foot outside the end zone. Here's the score. And that's just tremendous awareness, knowing that it's the first point of contact in. And on this day, you know, if he comes down with both feet at the same time, who knows where that next throw ends up.
That's a fantastic point, to be able to make that play on one foot when it really, really matters. Like you said, great field awareness, but also fantastic athleticism to be able to catch himself like that.
Not too many better athletes in the sport right now than Tyler DiGirolamo, the Pittsburgh product.
One of the potentially the top 10 players in the game, according to my list. And he has everything when it comes to ultimate in the game. He's got the size, he's got the speed, and his throws have been progressing along year after year. And I just remember his breakout moments coming through in the summer with him on Next Gen. It was incredible what he was doing against some of the best players in the world, and that's when you knew for sure he had arrived.
2 national championships with Pittsburgh's in Sabanur. That Pittsburgh team, a title contender again in 2015 under Nick Kazmarek. Baboy Famorkin Over for Liboon, and juggling it. De Los Santos hangs on. This is Christian Guerrero. The Boracay Dragons looking to retake the lead. A discussion as to whether this was good.
Looked to me like his shoulder came down first, feet not in the end zone when he caught it.
Looked like that disc was in the middle of the crowd. Here's the angle. Is that knee on the ground, or is the foot the only thing that was touching?
I think the proper move here is to have it be contested and actually go back, because I'm not even sure what actually happened. We have super slow-mo up in the booth.
Well, and the luck of the draw, there are so many potholes in the sand. If you happen to bring that knee down in a peak or in a pothole,
can make all the difference.
The difference in who wins the game. I was saying it'd be interesting if we had sort of a sand-like Zamboni that could flatten this surface field before every game. Looking for the hammer. That'll float nicely and in and out of the grasp of Francisco. Oh, that looked beautiful. Now Matsuka tries to counter with a hammer of his own. Basically a punt. Not an easy catch by any means, but looked like the Philippines had it.
And the U.S. with the zone is giving up opportunities because DiGirolamo is back guarding two players at once.
And the short, deep hatchet able to sneak in with a poach underneath. DiGirolamo. Push pass for Matsuka. Into the end zone, it's McShane. USA has scored 3 straight to take the lead back from the Philippines.
I've been very critical of some of the strategies employed here in these last couple of games, and we saw the zone from the U.S. where it let up the hammer over the top, but on the next possession, the advantage you get out of a zone is when you get a turnover, you get more likely of a chance to get a short field with it. The U.S. can take advantage of. Hatchet catches it on the fly and is able to move the disc very quickly. Philippines can't set up on defense. It leads to an easy goal.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Dragon defense was slow to pick up a person simply because they hadn't had a clear, definitive person on them. So their reaction time, being a touch slow, kept enough receivers open that the U.S. offense had options.
And it seems to be a conscious decision by the U.S. defense to throw zone from when the Philippines are going from right to left down the field, because the wind can trap the Philippines in a forehand force on the sideline. On the other way down, we saw last time the U.S. stayed in tight, very tight, man-to-man defense. We'll see if they do the same again.
Timeout was called by the Philippines, trying to squelch this 3-0 run. Timeout's extra valuable in the game of Beach Ultimate because you only get one over the course of the game. Not 2 per half, not 1 in a floater. Philippines out of timeouts as Team USA gets ready. Goose Helton preparing to pull out there with Kolick, Inselman, Wilson, and Brower Jarris. You can see all the nations represented with their flags blowing in the wind here in Dubai at the 2015 Beach World Championships, the 4th ever Beach World Championships after trips to Brazil, Portugal, and Italy in 04, 07, and 2011. And it will not be a USA sweep. First Team USA team going down, the mixed team in the semifinals. They had been undefeated through pool play. But in these windy conditions, truly an equalizer, anything can happen. And in a low-scoring, grind-it out semifinal, Team Canada, led by Jeremy Norden, the Merritt twins, Yolan Cabot knocked off the Nikki Spiva, Markham Schaffner, Jenny Fay, Claire Desmond-led U.S. team. Now the Philippines looking to tie it up. Good read of the disc and in and out of that grasp of Rodil. Broward Jarrus sends one deep, looking for Helton. And Goose Helton makes a spectacular adjustment to give himself a chance before ultimately falling short of making this great grab.
Despite it not working out for the Americans, you see actually two lefties on the field for that. On the offensive side off the turn, Broward Jarrus there with the lefty backhand, going to be more valuable going in this direction. Same with Alan Kolick.
That first throw of the game that Kolick had for the score was unreal. And now Kolick comes up with a soft D. Plays leapfrog with a Filipino defender, and well, this is going to go back, it appears. Inselman laying out big time on the mark here. Winner of this game faces the winner of Great Britain and Canada in the Open Division Championship tomorrow. We'll have 5 championship games for you tomorrow here from the beautiful beaches in Dubai. Not sure if Mark Poole got a fingertip on that layout bid, but it was off the hands of Rodil in the aftermath. And now Poole, 15 meters from the end zone to Helton. Wow. You know, Megan, you and I remember a really windy night this past season in the AUDL in Chicago. A great game between Indianapolis and Chicago. We saw guys like Goose Helton and Keenan Blue, two of the great receivers in semi-pro ultimate, professional ultimate, and they had dropped just like that one, and it's dealing with this wind like we are today.
Yeah, it just makes it so hard to obviously make the adjustments necessary as a thrower, but as a receiver, you're never exactly sure where that disc is going to go. We saw Goose Helton make a catch earlier that was almost luck. Of course, he remained ready, which enabled him to make that play, but the disc almost popped right into his hands, and that last drop nearly popped right out of his hands.
That's a catch we would almost expect him to make, but you never know in this wind and the sand. It's a virtual sandstorm out here on the field. What exactly he was seeing.
Looking again for Helton. And again, USA unable to connect on the deep shot. It's been one of the longest points of this game. Less than 5 minutes away from the soft cap. USA leading 6-5. And Brian, you mentioned the virtual sandstorm. You know, you're out on that field. You know, we are fortunate to have our backs to the wind, so the sand primarily blowing from the near side of the field to the far side of the field. These guys running in all directions can't avoid it. De Los Santos trying to throw that cross field, and it goes into the sidelines. Many Team USA supporters from other divisions watching this open semifinal. With Brian Jones and Megan Tormey, I'm Evan Leffler. Down the stretch we come, and USA will take a timeout.
You have to like that call with only 4 minutes to go till cap. This is a pivotal possession. You can take a breather, come out with a set plan. Megan, that's been your mantra all week long.
I'm a big fan of knowing what you intend to do. When everyone on the team is improvising, it's certainly hard to be even remotely on the same page. Plus, there's just something good for the team energy when you all come together, talk about what it is you want to get out of this game, besides winning, of course, and then decide how you plan to execute that together.
This Filipino squad nearly was shocked in their quarterfinal game. They had a 10-7 lead, game to 11, and Australia battled back, forcing Universe point. And on Universe, Boracay Dragons were able to take care of business and clinch this berth in the semis against the United States.
And of course the Dragons have their eyes on the final prize, the gold medal, but as I was talking about earlier, this program means so much to the individuals, not just as a conduit for playing a fun game, but really a program to help them live their lives. Akira Yamaguchi was saying, for people who grow up in developed nations, we take a lot of organization for granted. When you're growing up in a developing nation, it can take some practice understanding that to be a part of a team, you need to show up on time, you need to buy into the training program, you need to work together with your teammates. There are so many things that individuals are just learning by being a part of this program.
And USA out of the timeout like clockwork, takes a 7-5 advantage. How about that flow off the stoppage, Brian?
Just they have the set play, they're able to get the first pass, and everything leads from there. You establish a rhythm, this allows the defense to be in a state to have to catch up as opposed to being tight on their man. Great job by Team USA.
So that's 4 in a row for the United States after falling behind 5-3. They have certainly answered the bell when the pressure rises to the top.
And it can be tough in conditions like these. Even though you see the points going up on the board, they really are struggling to make these plays for completely understandable reasons. So it's good, again, taking that time out, reminding yourself who you're on the field with and what capabilities you have, even though the wind is taking away a lot of options they typically have with ease.
Natsuka to pull again for the United States. Almost must-score time for the Boracay Dragons of the Philippines. And that disc just popped over the grasp of the target, Pinoy de los Santos. Natsuka has Di Girolimo's a dump, but he's well defended. Forced to throw the hammer. Natsuka appears to be arguing that that disc angled back into the field of play for a moment before sailing wide. Some perspective from Tyler Kinley, who's standing right on that sideline behind the throw. I've been amazed, guys, at how well all of these teams have dealt with the term best perspective. They really have been willing to respect someone else's on the field, someone other on the field view of the play.
Well, and I think the conversations we've been having in the broadcasting booth are exemplary of why that conversation needs to happen as civilly as it has happened this week. Because even with super slow motion replay, as Brian said, we sometimes disagree about what it is exactly we see. So you have to understand that you might think you have the best perspective, or you might think you know what happened, but it's good to get additional voices before you make your final conclusion.
Mistake by the Philippines near the end zone. Natsuka trying to find a gap, hits Di Girolamo. Backhand to space, and it popped down low, dipping under the reach of McShane. Whereas we saw the points before, 3-4 guys going deep, now really nobody going deep. And Di Girolamo knocks that away. A little bit too casual there. A throw that in normal conditions so effective when there's no defenders nearby, but you can't take anything for granted when the wind is howling so voraciously. Nice grab. Soft cap goes on after this point, and it will be a game to 8. The Dragons, instead of falling behind 8-5, game to 9, back within 1. And now the Philippines need to break USA twice to win and advance to the finals.
Say USA looked a little careless with the disc at times that point. They're really going to need to clamp down on that if they want to secure this game. Obviously, with 2 breaks needed by the Dragons. I think this game is as good as won by USA. But, as we've mentioned so many times, you can't take anything for a given in this wind. So every time they get the disc, they need to pull it in and either punt it long or make a more secure pass.
In a game where you're almost guaranteed a turnover on every single possession, you are never out of it. It may take long for it to get through. You may have, it may take 15, 20 minutes to happen, but we're playing a game to 8 regardless here. So the Philippines, all they need to focus on is scoring twice. And that, of course, starts with scoring once. For the people here that need lessons on counting.
It's always good to have the reminder. O'Brien underneath for Kinley, past him, and incomplete.
Wind, it's picked up all game long, but it's really picking up here, Evan.
And perhaps reaching a new zenith in terms of speed. Some contact there. Was it a foul? Jude Lee, the captain, guarded by Alan Kolick. Oh, the diplomacy in big moments. There was certainly contact. Hard to tell if it came before or after the drop. They're going to send it back.
Certainly think that one was warranted enough contact to be a foul.
Oh, God. That almost caught Francisco in the teeth. On the other hand, if he had caught it with his teeth, it would have been a sensational grab. What a grab there, but in and out of the hands of Marsh. He had it and then lost it. USA was 5 meters away from a championship game berth. A bullet underneath to Antonio Francisco. The speedster dishes off for De Los Santos. Forced to throw it over the layout, and that's why that was a turnover. The layout on the mark from Inselman didn't get the hand block, but he forced the higher release.
And the wind took it from there.
A lot of times in the wind, when you want to force teams to pop up the disc, you're talking about marking with your hands low and forcing those high releases.
Inselman could not hold on.
It's one of the first shots we've seen from Mario O'Brien, and I like the gusto he's showing from the sideline to try to do that. USA has tried to complete the short passes on this point. Hasn't worked out too well.
Up that sideline, tiptoeing it inbounds. This is Francisco. He's really the one guy for me that has stood out over and over again watching the Philippines play this week in terms of his speed. He made a D against Australia in their quarterfinal game where he made up 6 or 7 steps near the end zone. This disc is floating seemingly forever and beyond. It sails.
I think, we've all had the opportunity, a mindset and that defender mentality, just like Tyler Kinley, chasing down the disc in a windy game, praying that it will go out of bounds.
Especially when he lost his footing. Had that disc not sailed out of bounds, I don't think he would have been able to make a play.
Right through the grasp of Kolick. How long do you think it would take if we had to play to 13, guys?
Evan, I don't even want to know or figure that out.
The Philippines have tied it up and created another universe point in a semifinal game against the United States. What a put. Jude Lee, the captain, hauling in the equalizer. And after USA had scored 4 straight. The Philippines have countered with 2 in a row.
Jude Lee has been playing in Boracay since 2003. He was actually one of the founders of the Boracay Breeze, which was the additional ultimate team in Boracay, which folded and joined the Boracay Dragons in 2004. So he's been one of the instrumental founders of this team, of this program, and has watched it grow since its infancy.
If you had long wondered who would be on the Universe Point line for the USA Open team in a situation like this, elimination play, do or die, we've got our answer. Jack Marsh, Tyler DiGirolamo, Mario O'Brien, Jared Inselman, and Asa Wilson. And DiGirolamo has shed his red scarf for the first time all week. If USA scores, they advance to the finals. If the Philippines scores, of course the Dragons would be playing tomorrow in the game that counts, and Team USA would experience semifinal heartbreak again.
They've shown this set play all week with Inselman at the disc.
It's looking for DiGirolamo, Wilson nearby, and DiGirolamo cannot come down with the disc. Now the Philippines take a deep shot. Marsh defending and knocks it away. Guys, if ever there was a time to catch your Ds, this might be it. Who knows what's going to happen with the disc off a deflection.
You see Marsh get up above the disc to make sure he can put it down.
That disc just popped up into the air and out of play. Did Marsh call a foul? Nope. So the Dragons with the disc in their hands, capable of eliminating the United States on this possession.
Kinley leading the discussion on the sideline to figure out where the disc is going to come in on.
Force that throw and in and out of the grasp of Liboon. O'Brien lets it fly. Wilson can't get there. Well, we saw the speed of Asa Wilson giving himself a chance. Just not enough float on that O'Brien huck. DiGirolamo on the mark here. And a deep flick. O'Brien got a piece of it.
I don't know what it's like for the players on the sidelines or players in the game. I know my heart's in my throat right now.
Sideline's getting more and more crowded. And again, that huck knocked down by Christian Guerrero. Guerrero with a good one-hand snag over to Francisco. Inselman on the mark and a call. Size disparity massive between Francisco and Inselman. And the put goes deep, but unsuccessful. USA asking for sidelines. That requires about 150 people to take steps backward.
O'Brien has to be careful in this instance. You're on the far sideline. You want to throw a backhand because you're used to throwing a better put in the wind with a backhand. If this disc doesn't come back in, it could be nearly game over.
And the last couple of throws really have given the Dragons the disc back in a more optimal position, I think about 10, 15 yards in. So you're right, Brian, they have to be very careful to make sure that if they put it long, it stays in.
Big fake allowed him to get the flick off to the end zone. It is incomplete. 6 players in the vicinity. Travel was called. Guerrero pulled that pivot foot from the perch on the end zone line. Double game point here in the elimination round. Winners in the championship game tomorrow. Loser sees the dream of gold come to an end. Sensational grab and then one more to Pascua. Wilson on the mark. Megan, you said earlier today that on these marathon points, advantage Philippines because of the way they train.
Yeah, absolutely. They have the speed to take this up the field quickly, and in general, I think they've been doing a better job of working it consistently. Of course, we've seen a lot of punts recently from the United States, and then just a few short passes, the Dragons have worked it fairly close to their end zone.
The Philippines about 15 meters away, and a foul called. That last throw before the centering feed was a break over the shoulder of Wilson. DiGirolamo was not expecting the mark to get broken. Can the Philippines finish it? Nope. Not sure if DiGirolamo deflected that throw on the mark, but O'Brien intercepts. And a deep backhand shot looking for DiGirolamo in the end zone. USA prevails over the Philippines. Or was there a call? O'Brien still standing on the goal line as the rest of his team celebrates at the other end. DiGirolamo perhaps with a game-winning sky. Not sure if we can get another look. Was this a travel? So hard to tell from that angle. It was a beautiful throw.
The rules often are interpreted that you have to call a transgression you see, not something you might see, and I can't see a sure travel out of that play. It's so close in that situation, it's really hard to tell if O'Brien did in fact travel. And you would hope that the Philippines, in this case, look at the call and see that they've actually made it.
Yeah, just to play devil's advocate, it's really hard for him to keep his pivot foot exactly in that spot on that throw, knowing that he needed to reach as far as he could to get it around. So they are going to send it back, and USA has not emerged victorious yet.
Was really impressed with that grab. When you look on the field and see the matchups, I don't think there's a single matchup where the Dragons have the height advantage, and yet it's been so hard for Team USA to get in proper position consistently. Such tight end zone defense and tight jump ball defense from the Dragons this entire game.
Seeing more and more players running over to this field to watch this final point, getting word of exactly what has transpired at the stadium. Looks like the discussion continues. It's a game to 8. This is it. O'Brien lets it fly again. Asa Wilson underneath comes up with it. And it looks like Christian Guerrero called a foul on DiGirolamo. Perhaps arguing that Guerrero might have had a play on that disc defensively when it fell short to Wilson. And this is when spirit of the game and on-field settlements tested the most.
We've seen this throughout World's competitions where in critical games at high levels we get into long discussions where teams try to convince themselves, and the way self-officiation is done, there's nothing else almost at this point that's going to convince either player of what actually happened. In a lot of cases in the United States, we use observers to speed up this portion of the game, and there's a constant debate back and forth.
Certainly was no contact there. I don't know if we can watch it a little further back and see if DiGirolamo and Guerrero got tangled up. You could almost argue if you're DiGirolamo, it didn't impact the play. And regardless, Wilson should have the disc here.
Absolutely. Wilson had the clear, proper position to make that play. Maybe a few steps difference if Guerrero and DiGirolamo were in fact tangled up. But I think Asa Wilson was so clearly the receiver in that point that it won't make a difference.
And I think, the goal of this is what would have happened if not for the presumed foul, if there was a foul. And it appears that Wilson would have had that disc and had the best play on it anyway. Team USA still has its timeout here.
I believe this is actually a Spirit timeout.
Really?
Coming through there. That actually do exist here in the WFDF rules, WFDF, World Flying Disc Federation, where they will take time to actually talk out a play that happened. And so I don't think this is an actual timeout because it doesn't look like the foul has been decided upon.
This is why teams nominate Spirit captains.
So what you're seeing is what a lot of people intend to want to happen in a moment like this, and
unbelievable.
Patrick Vandervalk would be extremely proud, the leader of Bula Beach Ultimate Association.
This is, I've never seen anything like this before. Universe point, semifinal, championship berth on the line. Let's just hold up and get into a Spirit circle. Unreal.
This is certainly going to be something to talk about. I got to attend the 2012 WFDF Congress when I was in Japan, and I came in saying, no, observers, they are the exact right way to go in all situations. And I was at least consider the other side's argument where conflict resolution, resolving disputes on the field, especially for the youth, teaching them how to deal with disagreements with others, could be so interesting and important for these communities, and especially moved by the arguments from Sweden and other countries in Europe.
I understand the soul of the sport, the foundation based upon spirit of the game. People often ask me for my television perspective on things. This is not good TV. The drama here is immense, and I've got no place to be, and neither do you guys, so take all day. But, you know, for the 7 o'clock Ultimate game that's on ESPNU, there's a 9 o'clock telecast elsewhere. They need the programming aspect of this to move along, and there's another game scheduled on this field for 10 minutes ago.
And you're exactly right, Evan, and they've started to take steps to try to include at least an outside sort of arbitrator, not arbitrator, but just official to say, here's the rule. And we saw this in LECO last year with game advisors that would have tried to avoid these long disputes, because I can tell you, go back in 2013 going to U23 championships in Toronto, they didn't have game advisors, and we were doing broadcasts on Next Gen Network that simply have arguments that devolved into 20-minute stoppages, nearly what we're seeing here today.
Well, good TV or not, I'm reminded of this part of my conversation with number 12 from the Dragon, Cymbalon, who is talking about how much Ultimate means in terms of helping these individuals on the Dragon lead better lives. Ultimate is not just about the sport itself, but you can learn so much from the sporting experience that you take out into your daily life. I think spirit of the game is, of course, of paramount importance in that regard. Conflict resolution, and when the stakes are high, still listening to one another, gathering around with one another, and trying to come up with a resolution that at least both teams can agree upon.
And it looks like they're going to send the disc back here. So USA is going to have possession, but needing to go the length of the field as the wind has not at all died down. If anything, it's picked up. Both teams do have the benefit of some rest to alleviate the fatigue from this marathon universe point. It is 7 past 2 here in the afternoon here in Dubai. The soft cap went on, guys, at 1:45. 22 minutes ago. This last point is now about 15 minutes in length.
I'm just amazed that all the players know where they're supposed to be at this point.
That's a really good point, Brian. I think I probably would have forgotten at this point. Unless, of course, you're one of the individuals who were involved in the foul or the throw. Those are the only two clear spots.
Imagine how USA is going to feel if the Philippines go on to win here.
And that's the case of what happens, and I think that strengthens the point for observers in a lot of ways that should be at least considered on the world stage, and that's obviously my opinion in this case. But you have these teams, including the Philippines, if they were on the other end, they've trained so hard and for so long, and while the sport isn't just about competition, you come here to compete at the highest levels.
Yeah, it still means an awful lot.
So O'Brien with the disc out there with Inselman, Marsh, Wilson, and DiGirolamo. Gets off the backhand. And DiGirolamo can't get it. It's intercepted. Here comes the Philippines. Looking to cap off a dramatic upset and a great grab as bodies tumble. De Los Santos swinging the disc for Simbulan. Make it Liboon. The game on the line and a mistake. Oh my. Unforced turnover. And O'Brien will pick up again.
He's got to take a deep breath here and keep it in bounds.
USA's tallest member, Jared Inselman, was breaking deep. O'Brien gets the backhand off. DiGirolamo comes up with a catch. He's not in yet and gets it to Inselman. Is the USA going to have to win this a third time?
I think this one is going to be a legitimate call. I saw O'Brien moving his pivot foot. If it is indeed a travel call back, it was before the throw.
What a grab there by DiGirolamo, whether it counted or not. Love to see that throw on the release one more time if we could, and the disc is going to get sent back here. The Philippines, like the cat that has 9 lives.
I gotta say, hats off to O'Brien to have to keep getting the disc back in these conditions pinned up against that line. Yeah. I would have a very hard time making that play over and over again. I know it's been contentious. I'm not bringing that into the equation, but to have so much riding on his shoulders as many times as he has, that's a heavy burden.
Winner of this game takes on the winner of Great Britain and Canada. That game is wrapped up. Another game has already started on that field. We're still awaiting word on who won that game. As the discussion continues now, if we had everybody mic'd up, this would be fascinating to hear the conflict resolution in real time. DiGirolamo thought he had it. Now back to live action. It's a flick this time, and it's incomplete. Guerrero to pick up. You know, this reminds me, Brian, I don't know about you, of Revolver Goat last year. You had the heavy favorite. Didn't fathom they could lose until they did.
And that's always how the Goliaths go down, isn't it?
Backhand from O'Brien again. He can hardly watch. 50-50 disc. It pops up. And the USA, finally with no calls, emerges victorious.
Jack Marsh is an alpha coming down with that catch.
Holy cow. Marsh, the game-winning score for the United States of America. Wow. USA headed to the finals in the open division. What a couple semis we chose to broadcast, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I've sat through a bigger nail biter than that one.
And all sorts of credit have to go to the Dragons. Your final thought, Brian, on this game, the Philippines' performance, and how USA, with an incredible medal, fought through.
Incredible performance by the Philippines, and they could have pulled out the victory very easily. They went up, and then they found themselves on the other end of the scoreboard for a while and never gave up fighting. Very athletic, great disc skills. Hats off to them.
I'm really so pleased to see the Dragons program continue to build. I know this was not the outcome that they wanted, but we really saw a lot of fight, and being able to play through conditions like this against an opponent like the United States, it really bodes well for the long-term, for the longevity of their program.
An unbelievable semifinal that included a spirit timeout on Universe Point. USA needing to win the game multiple times after calls brought it back. Some disputes in the final point, but in the end, great spirit from both sides, and it's the USA that advances 8-7 dramatically over the Philippines. We'll be back in about 45 minutes for the first of 7 championship games. We start in the Masters division at 3 p.m. local time, 7 a.m. Eastern in the U.S., 4 a.m. for the Insomniacs in the Pacific time zone. For our entire crew, Dubai Sports in partnership with Sky Magazine, on behalf of my broadcast partners Brian Jones and Megan Tormey, I'm Evan Leffler saying so long from the beaches in Dubai. Here at the World Beach Championships, Team USA has advanced to the finals in the Open Division, 8-7 over the Philippines in a semifinal classic. So long, everybody.